Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the League of Legends College Championship presented by State Farm. We're so excited to be bringing you even more action today as I'm joined by Dylan, as always, and making a reappearance on the desk is TJ Command Attack Bjorklund, as well as these two geniuses will be our tour guides for our third match of the day, where we have the 2017 and 2019 CLOL champions in Maryville University starting up their 2021 run against Montana State, as we are going to check over today's schedule once again. If you have been missing out on some of the action, well, fortunately, we had TJ with us for the first game. Harrisburg took down the Goucher Gophers. TJ, what were your thoughts on that series?
I think that it was the expected result where Harrisburg was going to win, and they're going to win pretty convincingly. But you shouldn't let that discourage you from being a school in a position like Goucher, where you are the underdogs, to still keep trying and putting your best foot forward.
Yeah, and we very much saw the same thing with Marist in the second series. Played a little bit closer against Winthrop, and Dylan, you were with me for that one. What were your thoughts on that series as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see Marist put up a little bit more of a fight than Goucher did. I think it mostly comes down to the fact that the players on Marist are a little bit higher in terms of like their individual ranks, and their team is, more successful in their conference. It was a fun series to watch. We got to see some exciting picks from Winthrop, which is always fun.
There was some Vladimir play that were making our hearts throb a little bit, piloted by Hart there in the mid lane, but now we have to move on to Game 3, as we've already seen two big programs take it on this stream, the Academy stream, and the biggest program unanimously coming in here for the last game of the day in Maryville University. But instead of touching on them, the favorites that we have in this matchup, I actually want to touch a lot upon Montana State, as they just had a great interview. Shout out to Half Asian Dad, who ran that one. We got to sit down with the 5 players as they gave us some thoughts. I know that one thing that they said is that, hey, we know we're the underdogs, but we don't want to be underestimated. And Dylan, I know that you were doing your research and homework on this team, and you don't think that they are a team that should be underestimated despite coming in as the underdog status.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like we were pointing out with Marist, they actually have some very solid solo queue rankings and, statistics within their own conference. When you look at Montana State, their roster averages out at around, a mid to low diamond level, which compared to some of these other schools from partner conferences is actually pretty good. Mm-hmm. Very unfortunate that you get Maryville, the multi-time collegiate champion, arguably the favorite, right? I mean, if you put this kind of like a Diamond 3, Diamond 4 level roster against like a Master tier roster, there's a very good chance. But that being said, there's a lot to look at for Montana State. It's very exciting that they made it to this top 32. They have a solid roster, as we went over. They've a relatively new program. A lot of the programs that we've covered, kind of like 2016, 2017, Montana State's actually 2019 is when they first got off the ground based off of a student ran League of Legends club. They're not a varsity program, so much like the other partner conference teams, they're not really, a full-fledged varsity program. And they compete in the Big Sky Conference, where they've actually been a pretty dominant force. In 2020, they did qualify for the Collegiate Championship, but unfortunately, due to COVID, the Collegiate Championship was canceled, and they didn't get their chance to play there. So they're back in 2021. They made the run back, and it's going to be exciting to see them play on the big stage.
It's really impressive to see these club teams kind of grow throughout those partner conferences. And we have a club that very talented, skilled in their own right, qualifying for this championship 2 years in a row. But this year, get disrupt their stuff. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, they do draw Maryville University, a team that has historically, they come in with a lot of precedent, being the 2-time champions, one of the programs that put the most resources into the space, not only in collegiate, but amateur as well. And TJ, is someone who is a head coach of your own program at Illinois Wesleyan University, kind of touching upon Maryville and what they've brought to the scene. What are some of the highlights for you of what this program has been able to do with all the resources they have at their disposal?
So Maryville does pretty much everything in the space. They have their hands in scouting, they have their hands in proving grounds, as you mentioned, in collegiate. They really try to make sure that they do rise the tide for all boats. Mm-hmm. So it's not just like a one-off type thing where they've done this event or this event. It really is like an every year type thing where they constantly improve and keep going forward. So outside of their great play with, their full rides, their 5 challenger players per team, like I said, they just lift everything up. So it's always a great thing to see them in the space, making sure that they're in these tournaments and doing well in them. So I'm excited to see if they come out strong today and end the games early and really prove that they are that dominant force that they are in the space. or if they're going to fall short a little bit and maybe be less disciplined and maybe not in the games as quickly.
Yeah, going off that last point, the thing that I value the most about Maryville personally is the level of discipline and professionalism that they actually bring to collegiate, right? Because a lot of programs, even if they are varsity programs or they're on scholarships, sometimes the players can get a little out of hand. Sometimes they don't have like such amazing coaching staff like Maryville does, right, with Zoo. Things can get a little hectic, but at Maryville, their goal is to send players to pro play. That is their goal, and they have done it with Niles. They've done it with Iconic. They will continue to do so with players they have down the line. Value is somebody who is, very close to breaking into the academy space, and he spent a lot of time at Maryville. They are kind of functioning as that talent pipeline, proving that collegiate can, serve that role in this space. And that's the most exciting part about Maryville to me, right? Seeing these players develop, kind of, narrating their stories, and just watching how these players transition, because all of these players have aspirations to become professional players.
Now on that, an interesting point is that they do have Chippies as well, who was a professional in Oceania. So even though they are sending players up, and I assume that that's his goal as well, they do have that veteran experience right now assisting their roster. So I'm curious as to what impact he has had on their current players and what that means for their futures.
Yeah, and I know from speaking with Chippies in the past as well, one of the reasons that he came to Maryville, he's been in contact with Zoo for a while, but also he loves to play internationally. It's a chance that he got over in the Oceanic region when they were able to qualify for tournaments like MSI. And if you win the collegiate championships historically, you play in the world championships for college, where they take the best team from China, Europe, US. You get to play internationally. That's a big appeal for Chippies himself when he decided to go to Maryville, and something that they are looking to accomplish. As we have mentioned, the 2017 champions, the 2019 champions. If we had a tournament last year, they would have been the heavy favorites going into 2020. But this year, with Proving Grounds, they, historically we've had Maryville qualifying like top 3 in Scouting Grounds, a very impressive performance for them. But they weren't able to make top 16 in Proving Grounds, which is no shame for any collegiate program that decided to participate in amateur, with level of competition being so high this year. But for Maryville, I think it's a big compliment to say that finish for them was actually a bit disappointing, as they weren't able to make it into the top 16 with just the history and how successful that this program has been. And I'm kind of curious, getting thoughts from you at first, TJ. Do you think that this is a weaker iteration of Maryville that's coming into the tournament this year, that there are more chances for other programs to potentially play upset with the bracket of 32 than what we might have had in past years?
So I think the answer is yes, but not for the same reason. I think it's because other teams have gotten better, not that necessarily Maryville has gotten worse. There may be like arguments on specific players versus other specific players on like, is player A a little bit better than player B? But overall, I would say they're about the same skill level. It's just that, again, other players have just gotten better in that there's more full rides offered. So there's more collegiate teams that have 5 full challenger players, or maybe there's more investment in a coaching staffing to improve those players that schools already had. So I would say yes, but not for the same reason.
Yeah, and I think kind of going off of that point, it feels like with the introduction of Proving Grounds and such a lengthy split, and teams like Winthrop kind of, partaking in that, the gap has closed because so many other teams have realized that collegiate can also participate in amateur and really like make an impact in that space. I mean, before Proving Grounds and a little bit of Scouting Ground circuit last year, not a lot of college teams are really taking amateur that seriously, right? They'd maybe playing like the occasional Upsurge League or the occasional Risen League, but they weren't really like actively trying to break into that. But now that there's, potential to play against academy teams at multiple points throughout the split, it's very, very exciting for these players.
Yeah, something we're going to have to keep an eye out for as collegiate continues to grow. More of these programs get support from their school, and Maryville, definitely one that has led that throughout the history of collegiate, as I know that we're getting very close here to the draft and getting the series started between Maryville and Montana State. So just some last quick thoughts. TJ, I'm going to start with you. What do you expect from Montana State and from Maryville in this series? What do you want to see going into this game 1?
So I'm expecting a strong win from Maryville. I'm hoping that they stay disciplined and they don't show their hand too much. So they show enough that it's like, okay, great, we can play staple picks and we can make sure that we are proficient on some of the more meta champions. But I don't want to see their like secret cards yet. It's a little bit too early for that. In terms of Montana, I'm hoping to see a strong performance where maybe they stall the game out. If they can take a game, that would be amazing. I know that I've seen teams take games off of Maryville before that are significantly worse than them, either from having really good coordination or, again, punishing that lack of discipline that some players can have sometimes. So at the end of the day, that's what I'm looking for, really. And I think if Montana State can, again, stall the game, have chances to win, then I think that would be a big win for them as a program.
Well, we're just going to have to see if Montana State is able to do that, as once again, Mazel and Rebel Fox, the casters that have been working on Maryville's stream the entire year, will be the ones that are bringing you the action for this game one. Let's see what they have to say as we throw it over to them.
Thank you so much, Covey. And as you said, I am so excited for this one. We get to cast some Maryville action yet again. Feels like this is home a little bit, but what I'm excited for is how we see Montana State show up today against Maryville. I think there's a lot obviously riding on this best of three. It is just still that one and done. If you're eliminated, you're out, you're done. So Maryville really need to come in strong for this one, especially to kick us off, Rebel.
Hey, we got a lot of time to cover the entirety of the Northern Conference from the perspective of Maryville through that Maryville stream, and we got to see them take that championship, losing only one game during the entire process. There's no doubt about how good this team is and how good they've been in the past and just how big of a titan, perhaps. I would make an argument they're the only team that's considerably able to be called the best team at this tournament right now before anyone beats them, and that's the kind of mindset that I think Montana State almost has to take coming into this one. It is David versus Goliath. That's just what's going to happen. Montana State, when they're walking into this one with the players that they've got, with the system that they've got, they have got to really drill down to what it is that they've been doing well all season and understand it so they can play to those kind of conditions to make sure they give themselves the best chance and, get past some of the stuff that Maryville has. Like they talked about, sometimes the discipline, sometimes the other issues that plague them and cause them to lose games to teams that are worse than themselves.
Yeah, and for me, it all starts for Montana State getting comfort, right? You need to get picks that you feel comfortable on. You need to get things that are going to set you up for success. I was just about to say, you took the words right out of my mouth, Rebel. As Maryville have seen the numbers, they know who's who, they know who plays what. They take away the Caitlyn. I do like the Tristana ban, though, in response. Heavy focus down towards that bot side already, though, as Maryville take away the Seraphine.
They do. The Swain is the other one that's played really commonly by the mid laner in Shikata or Shidoko, my apologies, out of the mid lane for Montana State. Those are really consistent. It's like if you give them their bread and butter, those are the two champions that you're going to see time and time and time again. On the other hand, it's near impossible to ban out some of their lanes, like their top laner. I mean, they had Olek play some of the season. Jeek is currently playing, and the combined champion pool of those two, I think, encompasses just about every champion you're allowed to play in top lane, which is like 146 or something like that. And seriously, it's such an ocean, it's ridiculous. So don't even bother trying to take champions away until second phase. I respect that. Instead, just getting rid of the Diana.
Yeah, and the Morgana also banned away by Montana State. I do like that, both top laners have a pretty big influence on bruiser top laners, or at least skirmishing top laners. So we'll see how that kind of goes. See if Chippies has a bit of a match for himself up there in Jeek. But it is that first pick Rumble. Saw huge success in our earlier series with this Rumble pick. See what happens when Maryville gets a hold of it, as the first pick for Montana State is actually going to be the Jinx Rebel.
Nothing shocking about that whatsoever. Like Sior, he's Caitlyn first, and then it's into Jinx, Kaisa, that kind of thing. Doesn't go off the beaten path too heavily. This is the expectation with how strong that is. The cool part, I think, about specifically this Rumble pick is how flexible it is for this Maryville team, only because I'm sure Chippies can play it. He's playing it before anything else had come through, all the changes, and Orange is definitely able to play it because it's a fantastic jungler, but Wolfie made his name on it during Scouting Grounds only a year and a half ago, and he's comfortable on that as well.
The Kindred is picked up for Montana State. Another potential comfort pick, at least for Puppy in a Hat. Not going to be one of his most played, but still up there in his win percentages in his games played as well. Not been seen too much in the meta recently, so I'm really excited to see what kind of composition they line up with this Kindred, because I do feel like it's a very resource-heavy pick. You always got to be looking for those essences. You've got to have map control. So that's what I'm looking at for the rest of Montana State's draft. They do pick up the Alistair, so that's going to be a nice combo in the bot lane. But tried and true, you got Kaisa and Rel for Maryville, another deadly duo.
That you do. And we've seen pop-offs. We saw even during some of the clips that you'd seen where Evan RL is just able to solo carry games on the likes of the Kaisa, and Shady's one of the best Rel players, one of the best supports. I mean, Shady's so good on Mad Lib any champion from the entire game.
I saw his tweet earlier where he was like calling out Core JJ. He's like, first spot on that ladder looks mighty fine. Well, hey, you're looking pretty good when you're getting picks like this. So I want to see how that rounds out the solo lane picks here for Maryville. They're obviously leaving that to last. We are getting some solo lane focus, though, on these second phase of bans where Montana State take away Gangplank and Wukong was taken away by Maryville again. Also, top lane focus, Jace goes away.
Carries being removed from both top laners' pools, not wanting to give that one away. I expect explosiveness because obviously I think Jeek is far more of a aggressive type champion player where like Viego could come out, Gwen could come out, things like that. And on the other side, we see like Aatrox really commonly. I'm surprised it actually wasn't banned out by Montana State here to make sure that that was going to get taken away.
I want to see his Camille. I want to see Chippy's Camille.
Yeah, Camille's pretty good too. I want to come back also to at least the Alistar, which we talked about how Sior's preference was towards that Caitlyn and then Shidoko's was towards that Swain, which obviously could come in here unless they decide to take the Aatrox away. But this Alistar is also one of those picks as well. It was the most popular pick for disarming Donkey the entire split, playing it into pretty much any matchup, and now has a fantastic matchup into the row where this is already a counter, and it's very comfortable for disarming Donkey. He's a great Alistar player in the bot lane, and that situation is just perfect for what they've got set up so far.
Yeah, so a lot of comfort already coming out. That's exactly what I wanted to see from Montana State. The Orianna, not so much comfort, but still just super strong in the meta as well for the team fight potential. And they saved that 5th pick. They saved that last pick there to make sure that Jeek has an upper hand up in the top lane. But now is the big brainness coming out from Zoo and Maryville. They do get the Silas, which is still that flexible pick.
They do. Is able to be moved, as is Rumble right now. The thing is, you don't have a flex with Jungle at the moment, so I think if you're trying to maintain solo lane flexibility, you'd have to take something. Otherwise, you flex between something like this with the Akali. It's a squishy composition. Okay, this could give away your hand at least a little bit, because it's unlikely that Silas is going Jungle, so this would just immediately indicate what's happening, which is Jack's top lane, and this is a blind Jack's top lane. We will see if there's actually a play to be had here by the side of Jeek. Ooh, that would be pretty interesting. I saw it in the champion pool. I wasn't expecting it, but it could be a fun way to start off our games today.
I just love the confidence coming out from Maryville, and especially Chippy's, right? Give them the Jax. Why not? See what happens up there. I mean, obviously, there's still some flex there. You could go Jax jungle. I don't think that's going to happen today. Shen is the final pickup for Montana State Rebel.
I like this for a couple reasons. First off, it's decent into Jax to start things off, only because you hit pretty hard and you can stop those auto attacks, which is the only way that Jax actually does damage other than the E. This is support that you can put into the Kindred, which is phenomenal, to be able to allow Kindred to play a lot more aggressively since you have that shield. Recently got buffed on this patch, so that shield got a lot better when you have a bunch of bonus health, so now Titanic Hydra and things like that are even better to build on Shen than they were previously. That's really nice, and it pairs very nicely with Alistar when Alistar wants to get aggressive. If you're not this super frontline tank, instead of popping your ultimate going in, now you can throw a Shen shield on top, and with an Ori ultimate, there's a lot of wombo to be thrown into that little setup. So Montana State, they've given themselves good lanes. It feels like they are playing a lot more to this team fight, to this Kindred. This is a mid-game team. That's where they always find their success. Usually around second dragon is where they really start to pick up their pace and start fighting for everything. That first dragon, that's where it's slow. So Maryville, they decide, okay, do we go for something aggressive to start off, or do we go something a little bit more scaly and take this game a little bit further? Their macro is incredible, so they go a bit more aggressive because they've got things like the Silas to pair alongside like the Rumble, which can get very aggressive quickly.
And another thing for Maryville, I find, at least in history's past, right, that if they aren't getting that objective control, if they aren't getting kind of these macro decisions around the map working out for them, they tend to fall behind and sometimes look a little disorganized. So I want to see how this kind of works out early on for them. And especially, I know it's been said a million times at this point in this meta, in this year of jungling, but the jungler is going to be so integral to how these two teams are going to play out the early game, how the pathing for Puppy in a Hat's going to be on the Kindred. Kindreds can be so sink or swim with the essences and trying to get those stacks up, trying to get to those 7 marks, and really trying to have that extra bonus to yourself. And if you can't get those, you know, you're stuck trying to run around the map to find those. And if you kind of leave yourself out, I feel like it's kind of like picking up a Draven axe in the bot lane, but it's across the entire map. So I really need to see an early pathing that's cohesive and very strong on the side of Montana State.
The Kindred with recent buffs, I think, starts to peek her head into the territory of far more common play, especially into like Rumble. I don't know this matchup perfectly because it's relatively fresh now, but at minimum, I have to imagine Kindred isn't just completely bodied by the likes of this Rumble early on and maybe can find some aggression. That's what Kindred teams to do, is find these very strong picks early and still aggress against them, like Olaf or things like that. I will say this about Maryville: when things aren't going their way, they're not always perfect, but they are extremely methodical, which means that Montana State has to have clear identity and they have to execute on it perfectly, and they have to come out and beat Maryville. This isn't a team that's just going to like flounder with a 3,000 gold deficit and just slowly bleed out the game from 15 minutes. They will do everything in their power to make sure they can climb that back, literally, kill by kill, CS by CS, until the lead is there and they can start to take fights. So Montana, if they do come out to this early lead, get into this mid game with like even Drake's 1,000, 2,000 gold advantage, something like that, they have to know what their transition is into the later stages. Otherwise, again, Maryville will take another victim to a team that's incapable of just taking control of the game and winning it themselves. With what their competition's got right now, they have good forcing and good 5-on-5, as well as 2 strong ADCs to pair with it into a team with not that much tank, which is pretty good for their later game kind of aspects here for Montana State.
Yeah, exactly that. And I'm just getting excited because it's looking like we're going to get some banger 5v5 fights and team fights and objective control. So I'm really excited for that one. But I do think a rock can be put into the mechanisms here if you are getting that lead early on for Montana State. I think you can find those advantages and kind of move that around the map. And the question is, you're getting to those wombo combos. You're looking over Maryville, there's some scary pieces there, especially when you're looking at an equalizer on top of the Magnet Storm and Evan RL just being able to have that killer instinct, right, to pop into the backline to find these squishier members, because you're looking at a front line of just the Alistar, just the Shen, right? Everybody else is going to be pretty squishy, and you've got to find those avenues.
I'm very excited to specifically see the combination of jungle mid here, where you've got Odd Orange with the Rumble, who can put a lot of pressure into this mid lane matchup, and breaking Silas out to allow Wolfie to attack the map. He did this with TF, he's done it with Galio before, and Silas isn't traditionally the pick you'd think of to do this, but the skirmishing power you can have in the river with a combination of a Silas's chain alongside what a Rumble can bring can go so crazy hard in the earlier stages of the game to just throw all this disruption into the enemy team. I feel like that's the way that Maryville, like that's their bread and butter, and that's the way this game will play out as well, where you win through mid by breaking out Wolfie and then just moving Wolfie and Odd Orange around the map, or just using Wolfie to play directly to his aggression around the map as well, and attacking these side lanes with those 2 pieces specifically, rather than playing into the map or something like that. And it's something you will have to pay attention to. There's going to be a lot of pressure put onto this Orianna, and that's a lightning rod that's got to stay put, because otherwise Montana State does end up getting into some pretty big trouble.
And I just want to highlight on Wolfie Silas a little bit more. You have some beautiful ultis to pick. I cover for the LPL, you see the, loving Silas into the Alistar because you get the unbreakable will. You become that frontline tank for your team. I don't know if we'll necessarily see that, but you do have some very strong ones to choose. And so my eye's definitely going to be on Wolfie in those team fights where you're looking what you're looking to take, rather, and trying to find those advantages in that way. Rebel, though, when you're looking at objective control or map movements, I guess, where do you think both these teams are going to be looking for early on? Which lanes?
That's a good question. There's a good amount of setup on both bot laners, but again, with Alistar versus Rel, typically the Alistar is going to have a bit more priority. Roaming is something that Shady does better than just about every other support in existence, or at least within like amateur academy, like LCS, or my apologies, not LCS, but here in the collegiate scene. He's really, really good. Yeah, he's amazing at it. Probably the best that just exists in this realm, and that might be a really good avenue for them, because this Kai'Sa, can you get away from Alistar decently? You're relatively safe enough on bottom side, so moving out Shady to attack the rest of the map is another way to play, so that's a possibility. Is just making sure you can use all 3 of these jungle, mid, and support piece. That's something else Maryville does very well. On the opposite side, it really does feel like it's going to be playing around Shen's ultimates to get aggressive anywhere, and pairing your pieces together as much as possible. 4-on-4s, 5-on-5, stuff like that feels like the bread and butter for Montana State. So again, that second dragon is where they like to attack. Once Orianna's got some AP, starts to get into that groove, once Alistar's got that level 6 and can start the front line, especially around that second dragon mark, that's the expectation for me for Montana State to begin pulling the trigger.
And I do wonder if we do see some jungle focus towards the top side, right? You do have that global with the Shen, but if you can kind of get a hold on that lane, as we saw in the previous series, you get a lead up in top lane. As it just lets you do anything you want across the rest of the map, or at least have a little bit more pressure in those moments. And so Jax getting ahead, getting some gold can be really strong. But if you can also potentially get Shen, like maybe one kill, just a CS differential, having that priority in lane, getting those Stand Uniteds in at the perfect moments, like you have that cross-play, the cross-map playability.
That you do. It feels like Montana State, a style, at least within these games, is not to play to lanes, however, which is why I think the Shen exists. It's not to play to Shen and to try to break that out so that it's a sandbag lane for the Jax. I think it's to make sure that you can attack every other lane across the map.
Yeah, I do believe we're going to be getting into game here. Game number 1 of the League of Legends College Championship. We have Maryville University taking on Montana State.
What an amazing start to our series. First off, we get Kindred back. That's nice. I don't know if the buffs are enough to bring her back in, but I'm really hoping, because Kindred's one of my favorite junglers to watch. She feels so fun. Not interactive all the time, but always really fun.
Oh, Shady tried to go over the wall.
Yeah, he might make another attempt at it. They don't have a ward there, so you could always try it again as soon as you shoot W back up, but that is a tragedy. It's also possible he's just saving that. Yeah, it looks like it's just going to be a back, though, and he's going to go back for his red ward.
All right, so the early vision control, a lot of vision at least, put out already by Puppy in a Hat. Going to have that vision just in case Odd Orange wanted to make an attempt over there. I'm interested to see, though, as we're going to be getting topside starts for both junglers, it looks like.
We will. Interact.
Oh, no, Odd Orange is duping us. He's going the other way. Sorry. It is going to be opposite side starts, which makes it even more interesting, I feel like.
I mean, there's no interaction to come, which, like, if you're a person who wants to see interaction as often as possible, that would be what you'd want, is to make sure that they're on the same side, then end up on the opposite, or on the same side as each other. So they both start top, they both end bottom, and then all of a sudden both of them are competing for bottom scuttle. This will lead to Odd Orange most likely just full clearing into top side, because Rumble's just so fast at clearing with these passive auto attacks, and with this Q when it's available to get the Krugs and the multi-target camps. You love this. This is like, I don't know what else to call it. It's just like the Niles like body check to start the game, where you just sit and tribe rush with any champion. It doesn't matter if you're Yumi, and you just throw an ability and an auto attack at somebody to get an early health advantage. Not huge from Chippies. It was just one auto attack, and the Q deflected a good amount of it, but still, that's the aggression you expect out of these MU top laners.
Yeah, it's that mental fortitude, the mental aggression coming out there. Just make sure, he's on his toes as the Cypher Jeek, but we'll see how that all works out. I would like to see how this, obviously we've talked a lot about it, but how this jungle pathing is going to go. Puppy already down on the bot side, just went straight from buff to buff. And so maybe looking for that level 3, maybe looking to get involved a little earlier. Yeah,
it's also possible this is like a Krug skip type pathing, which would be really weird, because this sets up for a full clear from bottom to top lane now, where your camps reset in that fashion. So it could be like into a full clear and then into a bottom gank to try to put pressure onto Evan RL and Shady, unless, like you said, he's going to cut and he's going to look for something either in top river up against Odd Orange when Odd Orange ends up there, which is a possibility since the red buff should still be up onto this Kindred at the time, or a gank into the mid lane, like you said also.
Yeah, he's going to go ahead and path back up there. Could be seeing that Scuttle Crab fight. Level 2 was achieved on bot lane. Nothing crazy happening. No full engages. Shady was waiting for it, trying to get that advantage with that level 2 first, but weren't able to get that cleared, and they both reached about at the same time. No arm's length engages right there.
Interesting. So that is a little bit of a class. I don't think it's as hard as a shove in as you wanted from Chippies. This would be the opportunity they have to look for a fight into the Scuttle Crab, only because Jeek is still here, and Chippies would have to catch the wave if it bounced back. But Chippies is running directly into the river. They sniffed this out pretty quickly. They did, however, lose the lottery because, of course, the mark heads to the other Scuttle Crab, and they're not going to be able to find that one fast enough. If this would have been a topside mark that just spawned for Kindred, this would have been a home run for Maryville, but unfortunately, it just means that Kindred lost a little bit of time and doesn't end up getting the Krug camp fast enough. Also didn't take Raptors yet, so you still got time to burn here with Kindred, where she's going to be down quite a bit of tempo compared to Odd Orange.
And it heads up move by Puppy in a Hat, but Jeek trying to get away from the gank, flashes over to Odd Orange. One more shot will do it. First blood for Chippies.
So I want to give massive props to Jeek. I didn't know you could even flash a Rumble E. I didn't think that was possible, and he just did it. And I thought the slow, like avoiding the slow, was what was going to get him out of that situation. But unfortunately, he's running into 2 melee champions and a bit of a gap closer from Chippy.
And
so
it does
with
cost the movement.
Yeah,
he was like waiting for the flash. He kept that
great.
distance.
Yeah. He was fantastic. Everybody on Maryville knew exactly what was going to happen. I was just taken aback because I was like, if he gets out, it's because he dodged the slow. And I'm like, okay, wow, Jeek, you really just did that. So.
Yeah, I do believe we're going to have a replay of that first flood showing up on Chippy's KDA. Got to feel good with the Jacks getting that early goal.
Yeah, and this all came off the back of some of the early pathing where Odd Orange, again, came to top crab. They knew that, Kindred was poking her head around this area, and the cheater back ends up getting the wave to bounce back, which allows this play right there. The dodge of the slow.
Good.
I thought maybe it would amount to something, but unfortunately, Rumble is a champion who's very fun and interactive. Presses Q, and immediately that's half the health bar gone. And again, the gap closer is available with the flash and the Q, and Chippy didn't even need the flash in that situation, and immediately gets a kill for the ex-OCE top laner.
And just attacking the global, giving some presence in the lane to Chippies on the Jacks. It's something we highlighted in the draft that can be super scary, and it's going to come to fruition there for Maryville. But the Dragon is up on the board. First Dragon's going to be Cloud Dragon, and actually it looks like both junglers are going to be pathing away from it. So maybe a later focus on these objectives.
Yeah, but like I said, this bot lane support combination is really a handshake to begin the game, only because if one of them engages, the other can counter engage pretty decently into the other ADC, or if you're Alistar, you just completely deny rel access into your backline. So it's like what do you do? Like, it's literally a handshake. Actually, there. Puppies is here. Watch him.
He's unspotted on the ward.
Yeah.
Wolfie going to be in some trouble. Flash from Puppy in a hat. He's looking to go for the kill. A little bit of damage here onto Wolfie, but Wolfie's going to get away. Now they look for the re-engage. He's still got Kingslayer, still got a lot of regen, and he's going to go in as well.
Wow.
As the Lambs of Spite is going to be stolen. There's the Sand United. Is it going to be in time? It's not! Auto Orange is going to get the kill off the back of it. Stan United burned, and Maryville up 2-0.
That felt excruciatingly just forced from Puppy in a hat right there. He flashes through the minion wave just to get the slow onto Wolfie, who still has flash, still has dash, and ended up getting the level 6 at the end of that, which didn't matter too much, and had the support of Chippies, because again, after the Shen gank, he immediately gets some priority for this Jax on top side. Odd Orange was hovering the area as well, ready for that gank to come through. I don't know where that came from Puppies. He just really wanted that aggression into Wolfie, playing that as though no one else was around, and unfortunately gets caught out because of it. Ends up going down, also giving priority of Bot River here away to the enemy team, where now all of a sudden Dragon becomes a very legitimate opportunity for Maryville to take some time in the next minute or two.
And maybe just a little miscommunication, mistiming, waiting for Shidoko's shockwave on top of it. Maybe that's why you're trying to get that slow, just to make sure that you can land that ability. But I still want to give a highlight to Puppy in a hat. I think he's been really good at positioning around the map, knowing when not to aggress too heavily, even though he went for that flash or went for that play. He knows that Chippies is missing. Chippies is kind of going around, and we've seen time and time again where he's able to back off at the right times. That time, not so much, but if you continue in that fashion, it'll work out pretty well for you, as Sior is very, very low on the bot side. They're looking for the dive. There's the equalizer on top just to show that Odd Orange is here. They've got to push the wave up a little bit more if they want. There's the headbutt into it, and that's going to be Odd Orange taken out by Sior.
Okay.
That's
all
it.
right.
That's the tweet.
I guess one brain fart here for Puppy in a hat, and one traded back for Odd Orange as he throws an ultimate behind the team, doesn't put any damage down, doesn't even shove the wave with it, which could have been done. This is the play in mid lane where a good amount of damage came out from Wolfie onto Shidoko, which I think is what kind of pushed Shidoko back a bit. There's the flash E.
Oh, okay. No shockwave either.
Yeah, no shockwave. Yeah, no. The mana was okay, and you could trade sometimes, but again, I think it was mostly off the back that they just thought it wasn't going to happen, and then Wolfie just gets level 6, is able to chain over the wall. Kindred really squishy, has the support of his jungler, and they're able to burn through the Shen shield as well at the last second, which I think was perhaps their plan was, okay, that's not going to kill me because I've got Shen shield, and maybe that's the thought process that ended up getting him flashing forward there for some reason.
And I thought Shidoko had the shockwave, did not. So there was a little bit of miscommunication in that aspect of it. Although not miscommunicating is MSU taking the Rift Herald.
No, it's not. They're able to snag that one away from the opposition. All off the back of, again, Odd Orange wanted to make a dive happen bot lane. I feel like you could have just taken Dragon with your bot priority by just shoving out with a couple of, like a Q with the lethality already completed on Evan RL. It would have been one Q and then immediately to Dragon, but instead goes for a dive by dropping Equalizer well behind the two, and then the wave just is stuck there because they aren't shoving hard enough on the bottom side, so can't make that happen, and then just gets completely baited by the Alistar, which we pointed out. Disarming Donkey's really good. This is the aggressive play. TP's coming in behind as well.
Yeah, play call is just too strong from Maryville. The killer instinct came out, but it's not enough, and you've got 4 members of Maryville coming down to the bot side here. TP's from Chippies brought him in on the flank. Disarming Donkey maybe not going to go down. Here it goes, though, and that's Shady picking up the kill for himself. Wolfie might be in a 1v2 situation, but Shidoko, not a lot of health, not a lot of mana, can't really capitalize on it.
Not at all. In fact, actually, Wolfie did a really good job boxing out Shidoko from accessing that bottom lane at all. Could have maybe looked for like a re-engage as long as that's faster from Poppy in the Hat and Shidoko, but instead they end up not being able to move because Wolfie just stands like a brick wall in front of them. It just locks them out of that bottom side play. No TP available either after the play from earlier. And so now this is the Dragon Timer that MU has been looking for the last few minutes, where it finally comes off the back of a bottom side play that was able to be made because of the TP from Chippies. Really nicely done. Jeek can't respond because the ultimate was obviously down. TP had already been down. MU making strikes across the map already.
Oh no. Puppy in a Hat's in some serious trouble.
Very bad trouble.
Yeah,
Yes.
Lancer Spike comes out just to buy some time. I was going to say, Shidoko, you don't want to watch this. You want to go away. You don't want to be a part of this anymore. As it will be another kill going over into the hands of Maryville.
Yeah, and worse even, like if you start to look at the top side farm, bottom lane's actually going okay, because again, Disarming Donkey is pretty comfortable, SCR is pretty comfortable on the Jinx despite the one kill. They did trade one back a bit before. This is a little risky. I'm going to have this point for a second.
Oh, they almost had the timing, though. They're still going to catch Sior, and that's just a dead ADC. Auto Orange gets the kill on that one.
Yeah, well played. They're moving into the jungle, preparing for a dive onto the Alistar, who's by themselves. They thought, okay, maybe we can find Sior if he's rotating from bot lane, and what do you know? They find him right as he's passing over the Raptor pit. So good pick off here from the side of MU and all of their champions. Now under the tower. Ooh,
Kingslayer plus
anything?
the
No.
Abscond comes out. A little bit of not even going to pop that Unbreakable Will.
No.
Feeling really confident Wolfie is already. And I think it's due, right? Because Puppy in a Hat has been non-stop to the mid lane, trying to get Wolfie down, and has been unsuccessful every time.
Yeah, they haven't had to worry about it. You have to think MSU might be thinking the same thing we thought to start this off, which is that, again, if MU plays through Wolfie to move him into side lanes, which has happened decently frequently at this point, then like that's when their map really starts to get difficult to play. So they're moving Puppy in a Hat there to try to protect the Orianna's late game. This is, okay, Evan RL's just flexing with Sior right now.
A little bit overzealous here, but they still got a lead in this fight right now. Although Sior's turning it around. Big Magnet Storm combo. Auto Orange gets the kill on Sior. They do get the trade onto Evan RL, but what will happen after? Auto Orange getting low, gonna go down. Equalizer's not gonna do much. So Stand United came through for Jeek. Shidoko's here, has the shockwave, gonna use it onto Wolfie, but that Unbreakable Will is huge. They're gonna retake this fight though. Mana bar's getting a little bit low, but that's already Shady down. Wolfie, the only one left here, trying to save his own life, but is going to be dragged down to the dirt with the rest of his teammates. Big turnaround and big pickups for the side of Montana State. Finally, Wolfie goes down. The Rift Herald spawned in bot lane, and we got a game on our hands, Rebel.
MU goes so far into this backline to try to find Jinx, they don't realize the danger that they're in, because Jeek can move across the map with the ultimate. That's what the Shen is for. This team is best when they're grouping. Here, Sior wasn't pushed off the tower fast enough. Evan just jumps in, so does Shady after this. And yes, they end up getting the Jinx on the end of this one, but more importantly, Puppy in the Hat stays alive the entire time, which is a second ADC they can use to continue this fight. Auto Orange also another equalizer that just completely awry right here. After this auto comes through, you'll see now Puppy in the Hat under his tower, relatively safe, and an outnumber here coming through from MSU, and not much damage. It's pretty much just Wolfie denied gorgeously by Shidoko, who's able to get that Scuttle Crab, and now all of a sudden you have no damage, you have a little bit of tankiness, but that's all you got is some survivability, as the rest of MSU comes in completely clutch to wipe the rest of this fight. Like I said, when this team's putting 4 or 5 members into these fights, that's what they need to do to find success, and you saw it right there firsthand into maybe one of the best teams we've got at the tournament.
Yeah, exactly that. And I love the move there to the bot side, but unfortunately, they don't take the tower with that Rift Herald. They get their own tower taken, as bot lane tower will go down to Maryville. First tower of the game.
Yes, there's also a slumbering problem in the top lane that's slowly Chippies,
yes.
which is the Jax.
I mean, honestly, in a lot of places, like there's huge CS leads on the side of Maryville, but yeah, definitely Chippies taking control of that top lane right now.
Yeah, literally just got 4 plates, all of those entirely solo. After that one play that happened on topside, no other real pressures come up to topside specifically. It's been Chippies who's moving to aggress against the rest of the map, and Jeek can't really be here. They have Puppy and a Hat up here, thankfully, and Chippies doesn't go super aggressive, but this tower could easily be taken. They're looking for some aggression against him, but
Chippies got 3 levels on Puppy, and well, I guess 1 now on Jeek, but the biggest thing that stands out to me right now, Rebel, is the fact that we have a 6K gold lead for Maryville, sub 15 minutes. And that's pretty much back off of the CS differentials, right? Like the kills are pretty close. You only got 2 in the lead for Maryville, but it's the lane dominance that we're seeing from this top tier team that is helping them out so much in this.
That it is. The early play for Chippies to get that pill into G. Okay, like G has to be very careful because if he doesn't use the W at the perfect time and catches one empowered W from the passive on ultimate, Chippies just kills G.
No.
Never mind, he just kills him anyway.
Chippies asserting dominance. A killing spree for the top laner of Maryville University. They take the tower. Now they're getting a TP. All the resources coming in to try to take out Chippies. Puppy in a Hat's gonna have the distance, gonna have the angle here. Can Chippies outplay it? Does get the ward hop and the counter strike to top it off. And Chippies, you're too good, my man. Even dodging the Mega Death Rocket.
Well played there. I liked the rocket from Sior because that was almost the pull. The TP into topside there from Shidoko. That was a good attempt, but again, nothing comes through from MSU. Chippies, he's able to pull out. And yes, you're going to respond with Rift Herald here, but that's second Dragon and still the 7,000 gold lead that currently resides in the pockets of MU that are just smashing this map, as you said, mostly off the back of lane advantages from like CSing and also from like when these players die, they're getting denied waves over and over again. This is textbook Maryville to punish across the map. Finally, oh my goodness.
That's the Stand United, but it doesn't matter. Yet again, going to be canceled because the target dies too quickly. Wolfie looking for the follow-up. Lamb's Respite comes out. Is he going to save the day here? Disarming Donkey just walks out of Lamb's Respite and dies, and then more kills go over. Evan RL's picking up his own. Wolfie's picking up his own, and that is another huge victory for Maryville University, who are circling around a 10,000 gold lead, Rebel.
Yeah, breaking this map into pieces, attacking constantly with multiple skirmishes. This is the way that MU just completely smashes MSU. If you don't let them get comfortable, get this 5-man fight, that's all you got to do. This is the play right here. First off, look at the damage. It's half the health.
Yeah,
W catches more. Equalizer was almost enough, and they were able to get it before Shen comes through, and that Equalizer had almost destroyed Disarming Donkey. And Puppy in a Hat tries to save his support, but really, there's no way to stay in this and stay alive, so just tries to make a run for it. Cannot work out. Same with Puppies, where if he doesn't stay in it, he dies, and unfortunately, the second he walks out, the same fate is made.
Very unfortunate, but very fortunate for Maryville University. I love that Evan RL is starting to pick up some kills here for himself. It was very even. The big focus was on this top side of the map, right? The top trio for Maryville, who were all ahead. Serious farm department. But now that Evan RL is starting to get comfortable, you're starting to see a little bit of difference there as Equalizer's going to come down. Killer Instinct not going to be there available.
We are almost arriving at a location where at only 17 minutes, Chippies will almost be flame horizoning his top opponent, which is, it's obscene. When Chippies first stepped into collegiate and into amateur on this team, we've gone ridiculously hard with how much damage that this guy can do and how much that this player has been able to accomplish having been that ex-pro. And you see this in every single game. If he's not just constantly being dragged down by the remainder of the map, it just looks so dominant from him. Chippies is just, when he's left alone to his own vices, he immediately becomes one of the best players that exists within the collegiate scene.
And just having, I had a little thought in my brain whenever I saw that Jax picked up, like, this is a Chippies carry. This is a moment for him to really shine, and he's doing so as we're going to get the engage from Maryville. There's the TP from Chippies on the back.
Puppies.
Is Puppy going to go down? Puppy's dead to Evan RL. There's Chippies trying to get them. Flashes over the wall. The Shockwave not even going to come out in time. And Chippies is now on a rampage, going under tower. One more kill will do it. Evan RL on a rampage himself. And this is domination from this top-tier team.
A spectacular juggling of the tower aggro as well right there, as now a 12 or 11,000 gold lead is existent. They're pushing down mid tower, they're pushing down bot tower, and they don't even have to do this in like these massive team fight setups or around these objectives. They're just forcing in these situations where MSU oversteps in the wrong place on the map with these equalizers as this massive engage. Right here, they find a little bit of a side flank. Look at that equalizer. You can't step away. Puppy in the Hat just gets separated from the rest of the team. And yeah, Sior gets to throw some rockets into Shady, but that's all you get before the flank comes in on the TP from, like I said, Chippies, who came in. And at that point, everybody's just scattering to the wind, trying to make it out. And look at that. One to Chippies, one to Odd Orange, and one to Evan RL. I think actually 2 went on to Chippies, but still fantastic jungling from this MU squad.
Yeah, it's been, by the numbers here for Maryville so far in this first 20 minutes or so. And they've shown exactly why they are this top team, why they do have all these strengths, and how they do mechanically execute on the map. And You know, at this point, you've got 2 items crested there for Chippies on this Jax. Jax is just ridiculously strong, but it's also the other pieces. You're getting a couple item spikes here on the rest of Maryville University, and you got to be really careful in how you approach these fights for MSU, because you really have no control over the map. There's one thing I talked about a little bit beforehand. It was Kindred needing control of the map, needing to get these marks down and try to get that advantage for himself. At this point, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
That's going to be Lamb's spite out. Chippy's just taking on the world over here. Mega Death Rocket's going to go wide, and Chippy's gets out with a little ward hop.
Yeah, just get able to walk out. Again, when you don't put this kind of pressure onto him early in the game, it eventually means that nothing is effectively being putting pressure onto him whatsoever as the game continues. I got to applaud also Odd Orange's abilities in this game. This Rumble has almost been like the engage tool for this team, which is amazing to see. Earlier on in the split, when it was like Udyr and it was Hecarim every single game, Odd Orange was still taking over games, even when he was on things like Nidalee, just able to completely run the map in his favor and in his image. And that's exactly what's happening again with the Rumble pick, where he just kind of commands everything as fights on multiple fronts here for the side of MU.
Might be a little overzealous. Kingslayer comes out, the Unbreakable Will there for Wolfie, but they've already found the kill onto Disarming Donkey. Now that beautiful 3-man Magnet Storm by Shady is going to help out tee off the rest of the kills here. That's a double, and give a couple more, as that's a huge win for Maryville, an ace for the squad, and they are looking to push down mid lane.
And they'll easily grab mid inhibitor here, but that's another kill, and now it's on like a 15,000 gold advantage. They'll get third dragon if they want it. They're actually walking right to Baron, and I think this is perfectly acceptable if they're looking to try to close the game on this next wave rather than waiting for another objective, which is something that they've been doing that was a little bit different from some of our other teams, where other teams, their pacing of the game is a lot faster when it comes to how they're scaling their gold, but the map presence from Maryville has been a lot more scattered, and they're taking a lot more off the map, where this mid inhibitor's going down, Baron's going to come down, and now they can force a fight around this next play instead of waiting for the last dragon or waiting for a 5-on-5 around the objectives. Instead, they're the ones that are just dictating when these fights are happening.
Yeah, I love that Chippies is being the front man there, just making sure nobody can walk out of the base. But this fight, Wolfie's taking on 2 people. The top side of the stand, United even comes down, but just great pick apart by Maryville in this fight.
Look at that ultimate. The Magnet Storm from Shady is
It's
gorgeous.
so big.
Yeah, and Evan doesn't even matter. Like, it doesn't matter. At no point was Sior ever comfortable to stand there and press his auto attack key into this team, which is just, you know that the team is broken at that point, where, Montana State, they've been trying, and when they get this fight set up, like, it looks good. We saw that around bottom lane. But again, Sior has not been able to be, comfortable in the slightest on this Jinx pick, get excited or go crazy whatsoever with this very team fight oriented ADC, because they just keep getting pulled across the map constantly by this MU squad, who are doing a great job of breaking these pieces apart as they slowly pick apart the map in the exact same way. And with this Baron buff, like I said, I think this is the closing Baron buff of the game. Montana State, they might get their chance at a 5-on-5, but this slowed down. It doesn't matter how good you are. You just have to hope that somebody's going to make an overextension and try to find a play.
Oh my God, Shady yet again. The equalizer over top. There's the Wombo combo. You've been waiting for your dreams, as Maryville are going to slam home this win. The champs are back, baby, and they ain't taking no losses. Triple kill for Evan RL, and that'll be game number 1.
Goodness gracious. I can't even stand it. There's like 2 items, 2.5 items, 1.5 items in some of these members. There's like 2, 3, 4 items completed here for Maryville. It goes so hard how much gold advantage they had at the end of the game. Very clean closing as well with the Baron buff. It is to be expected from our previous champions back in 2019, the last time we hosted this tournament. You're seeing why right there, and just how good they can be into Montana State, who, for all intents and purposes, this is a good team out of Montana State. You saw at times they were able to strike back in very key moments, but again, it just doesn't matter when you're getting completely outpaced like that.
Those Shady engages, man. Back-to-back 3-man Magnet Storms to just tee it up every time, and everybody pulling their weight. Honestly, I'm starting to think there's a theme that everybody just wants to hit that 20K gold lead today, as Maryville come out smashing game number 1 of this best of 3.
That they do. It's a great game 1, right? I think Maryville does want to clean up some of the problems with like the skirmishing early, or they just want to break the map even further apart than what they did in game number 1. And Montana, they desperately need to grasp control of something on the map, because it felt like there was never a point where they were making an aggressive move. It just felt like Maryville was making a move, and then they did nothing, and then Maryville would make a move, and they did nothing. And one time it happened to go awry for Maryville, but it never felt like Montana made a play that was actually like their play to have made, or it was their movement that caused something to happen. And I'd like to see them take control of that again for game number 2 when we come into that one, to give themselves the ability to make their own aggression, to have their own play style that they're playing to, rather than just hoping that Maryville just like outpaces themselves or make mistakes.
And I hate to say it, but it leans back to what we were talking about with the Kindred, right? You never really got off the ground. You had a couple good moments, but it was never this sticking champion that made the fights matter. And the Lambs' fights were always reactive, always defensive, always at the last moment when you're going down anyways. And I want to see some more proactivity come out that way, some more stabilization from the jungle. But I got to see Shidoko on some comfort here. Orianna is a good pick and all, but I want to see the sway, and I want to see the things that we know these players can play and do well in and succeed. So I'm hoping to see some changes as we go into game number 2. But to break down that first game and how far we've come already with Maryville, we're going to see the analyst desk.
Thanks so much, casters, for bringing us the action for that game 1, as we saw Maryville University take a rather convincing victory, as we were expecting. But I know, talking on the desk and what we were expecting from the underdogs, the self-pitched underdogs as well, if you caught the interview before this series started in Montana State. I know, TJ, you were actually saying that you were pretty pleasantly surprised with some of the play they were able to showcase here for this first game. So walk us through what kind of surprised you from them.
I think it was interesting to see some of the key points where they had like legitimate opportunities to create advantages. So, for example, Montana State's mid laner outperformed Wolfie a little bit at the start of the game. So I'd love to see maybe like pushing advantages like that, because I think that if they're able to put Maryville on their hind feet, maybe they can lower the gold gap and then have better opportunities to create fights.
Oh, apologies. Yeah, so one of Maryville's weaknesses throughout Proving Grounds that we saw from them was their inability to kind of like adapt on the fly. If a game goes kind of to the script, sort of like a Korean-esque style of League of Legends, like they're very good at playing a game out correctly and they have very good fundamentals. But when things get hectic, sometimes they kind of get lost in the chaos and they fall behind. So, I mean, you were talking about it during the game, TJ. Maybe Montana kind of goes for some champions like, you know, we were calling out like Nocturne potentially is something that can disrupt these fights. Malphite is a potential option. There's plenty of other characters that they can pick as well that they're more comfortable on if they prefer those. But something to kind of disrupt Maryville's, you know, formulaic approach to the game.
I know,
right, so I'd love to see those weird champions like Nocturne, where it's like, hey, you have to communicate better, and it's not something they can just like play standard. Other champions might be like Nico, where maybe you throw in some stealth, or like some flash ultimates, you know, just unique champions that Maryville hasn't scrimmed against every single day for the past 2 months.
I know that we are kind of pitching a story where we're a little bit surprised with the team that dropped and hopeful for Montana, but one of the reasons that we are being a little bit more on the harsh side of Maryville is because we have such high expectations for a 2-time C-Law champion, and I know that, you know, we can nitpick their play a little bit here and there, but they still ended up delivering a very good victory. As I know, diving into this first replay that our wonderful production staff has prepped for us, we are going to see quite a fight breaking out in the bot side, and I know that you know, TJ, Dylan, you guys were rather impressed with Montana's play at times. This is one of the more positive plays that we had on the Rift for them.
Yeah, I mean, this was a very solid fight. Honestly, when this happened, I was thinking, like, maybe they have a chance in this game. You know, like, the fight starts off, Evan RL going a little bit too far forward. And honestly, one kind of note about this game is it felt like Odd Orange's Rumble wasn't as good as I would expect it to be. I mean, it is a newer pick. It obviously hasn't been picked in the jungle virtually ever outside of some, like, maybe niche picks in the meta. But now, as it's becoming more of a staple pick for these junglers, maybe he hasn't practiced it a ton. But it felt like a lot of his equalizers were kind of off the mark. You know, he was using them in inopportune times and not really comboing them very well with Shady to layer the crowd control on top of the damage. And it just looks like Maryville overextends. And kind of, you know, going back to my prior point, honestly, it just feels like if Maryville doesn't really feel comfortable in a scenario, if things kind of, you know, go not according to plan, then honestly, I think Montana might have a chance in this second game. They're my favorite underdog of the day so far.
Yeah, they have put their best foot forward, and Although they ended up losing the game, at least we saw some positive plays from them. I will say that one of the big highlights for us in this first game, we talked about Chippy's his international experience and the pro experience that he brings over from the Oceanic region, participating on Maryville's collegiate team this semester. That seemed to really shine through as he got one of his specialty picks in the Jax. And TJ, I kind of want you to break down kind of Chippy's history, what we saw out of him in this game as well, and what we expect out of this player throughout the tournament as we expect Maryville to continue their winning streak and to move on to the round of 16.
Right, so I know Chippy's was a leader on some of the teams that he played on in Australia. He bounced around a little bit, played on some of the top teams, so he definitely does have that competitive experience, and I'd love to see more of that in the next game, where maybe he's a little bit more dominating on the less experienced player, because Shen was TPing around the map, he was at plays, and like it was a very impressive performance by Montana State in terms of that, because you got to think about like the gusto it takes to say, okay, great, you know what, I'm laning against somebody that has played professional, done a lot of work here, and then just like TP bot lane. Like, what does that look like for you as like a player? So I'd love to see Chippy's play something more lane dominant and say like, hey, I am better than you. You don't get to play the game, period.
Yeah, and I know that Chippy's, with that Jax, even though it's not the most lane-dominant pick in the world, was still able to get the Flame Horizon, the 100 CS lead, and had a killing scoreline on the pick as well. As we mentioned, it's one of his specialty picks. Loves the carries and loves the fighters in the top lane, something that, Dylan, I know that you've had firsthand experience not going up against Chippy's necessarily, but in the past, you know, we've had to go up against Maryville and go toe-to-toe with a player that few might remember the name or the IGN Niles, a decent top laner that played for Maryville that may or may not have went pro as well as Chippy's in collegiate, still playing at a very high level. And how difficult is it, you know, as a team to go up against a player like that in the top lane, especially you with your experience as a jungler? Like, what do you have to deal with or think about going into games like that?
It's so hard because when you have such a dominating duo like Odd Orange and Chippy's, you really can't get better in collegiate than that, right? Odd Orange obviously bringing former LCS experience, Chippy's bringing former OPL and international experience as well from the Australian region.
Mm-hmm.
It's so scary. It really is so scary because if he is going to pick something lane dominant, you know, Renekton, Quinn, something like this, like another ranged top lane or whatever he really sees fit in the matchup, it's terrifying. You know, it gives me like no org vibes of like Onda just camping for Viper in the top lane, Viper getting like 100 CS leads by 15 minutes. Like, I feel like if Maryville wants to blow open the game through top lane, they definitely can. And I'm a little bit scared for Montana State because I feel like Maryville is not going to be happy. Zoo's not going to be happy with that game 1 performance, and he's going to whip him into shape for game 2.
And I think that does play to Maryville's strengths too. Like Wolfie loves playing champions like Twisted Fate, like LeBlanc, that have really high map impact. So I'd love to see them go towards something like that and just blow down the top lane. Like they could have the tier 2 top at like 12 minutes if they actually wanted to.
Yep.
That's something that we're going to have to see if Maryville opts for, as you guys kept on teasing the fact they were able to break the game open, which they did do around the 20-minute mark. We have that replay ready for you as well. Ended up wiping this fight, taking the Baron after. And I know that we've been a little bit pessimistic about such a dominating performance, but once again, these are the two-time champs in the last 3 years we've had this championship. So I guess a few reasons for us to nitpick their play, but overall still very solid. We get to see some of the highlights, some of the team cohesion that we expect out of Maryville shine through in this play.
Yeah, I mean, their team fighting coordination is always something that Maryville's been so good at. I mean, they're such a drilled and practiced team. That's one of their, specialties compared to other collegiate teams. Sure, maybe their individual players lack a little bit of firepower, and honestly, they really don't. I mean, but like on an individual level, like you could compare like Winthrop's players with Maryville's players, like sort of. It's pretty close. And same with like Harrisburg and colleges like that. But where Maryville really shines is just in their like coordination as a team, right? I mean, their team fighting, their map movement, their early game, their rotations, everything is so crisp and on point. It's been drilled over hundreds of scrims this past, semester of practice through Proving Grounds and through, their own CLO games and through practice, and just everything compounds on each other to make Maryville just such a well-oiled machine. It's so hard to go against.
Yeah, and I know that it's something that Maryville, throughout their history, especially that at the helm by their director Quirky, their coach Sue, and even CatGod, a player that stuck around after he won that championship to help manage the rest of the program. It really is a culture that breeds excellence and something that we expect out of them in any esport they participate in. It's their Overwatch team killing as well, something that's very, very positive. As I botched the cat god coming on through, but yeah, CKG, an absolute beast in his own right, as he was part of the 17 team that ended up winning, as he was in the jungle role, I believe, for that one. Very flexible player throughout all of the years. But that said, Maryville is something we expect in terms of breeding excellence. I want to get final thoughts before we end up actually throwing to an interview we recorded beforehand with Zoo. Going to start with TJ and kind of put you in the position of Montana State. It's a conversation we've had throughout the day. If you are the underdog, what do you want to see? We talked about the Nocturne. Maybe your favorite pick coming out in the Mel fight as well, something that you tease that could potentially work is that hard engage. But kind of curious, if you're Montana State, what are the positives you take away from this game, and what are you trying to do going into the next one?
I think if you play standard, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
They've scrimmed more. They have better players. You have to come up with something unique, whatever that looks like based on your champion pools, specifically something with agency. So something like Heimerdinger, where it's like, okay, great, I just get to push and I just get to lob a grenade and start a fight. Something like that, or like, great, I can play Cassiopeia, 20-minute Baron. Just something completely out of the ordinary that Maryville might not expect. And so hopefully there's some plans in place to kind of get something like that going. And that's what I would like to see, where it's like, okay, great, we've practiced a little bit, we know what's going on, let's show them the A game and see if we can take something away from them.
Dylan, anything else you can add upon that? Any cherry on top to top off this nice Sunday that TJ's brought for us?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I could top the Heimerdinger comment, honestly. I would love to see something like that, because as we've seen from these underdog teams, I mean, TJ, you said it beautifully. You're not going to win if you play standard. You're just simply not, because it's just all the cards are stacked against you. It's almost impossible. The only way to take a game off of one of these titans of collegiate is to just try and blow up the game through something that they've never seen before, right? Whether or not it's a champion or a strategy or a level 1 play or just something, this is your last chance to prove it. And I would love to see these Montana State boys, take home a win in this game.
It's going to be tough to see if they can pull out something that Maryville's never seen before. We talked about the experience of so many players, but I also want to highlight Evan RL, who has competed from the start of CLOL with RMU over to Columbia, now over to Maryville, has a starting spot on this roster, well deserved. He has been an outstanding 80 carry throughout all of collegiate. But to give more qualified thoughts on Maryville as well, it doesn't get much more qualified than their head coach, Zoo. We had our play-by-play caster straight from the LPL, Mazel, sit down with the head coach of Maryville before this tournament started. Excited to see what he has to say in this next interview clip.
So give me a little bit of the mindset going into this. I know we talked a little bit about it beforehand, but I want to hear it straight from the horse's mouth, if you will.
I definitely think we're the strongest collegiate team right now, but collegiate as a whole has definitely gotten a lot stronger over the past year or so. And I'm really starting to enjoy that, and there's a lot more competition. You can kind of feel it. So I think we're geared up to have a really good champs this time around. Should be the best one yet. We're pretty just locked in on a few key concepts that we're trying to work on, trying to improve. Teams all on the same page as to these are the things that we have to be tackling. And fortunately we had a lot of time in April, and we even have some more time in May. Hopefully, as long as we get the job done on Saturday, we get ourselves another week of practice, and we just got to stay locked in on those things that we need to improve. If we just show up each day and get the job done, and everyone does their part, I'm pretty confident that we're looking at a repeat championship.